The story of Jack the Ripper is one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in history. Between August and November 1888, a series of brutal murders took place in the Whitechapel district of London, England. The killer, who was never caught, became known as Jack the Ripper. Here is a detailed timeline of the events. August 31, 1888, Mary Ann Nichols, a 43-year-old prostitute, is found murdered in Bucks Row, Whitechapel, London. Her throat is slashed twice and her abdomen is mutilated. September 8, 1888, Annie Chapman, a 47-year-old prostitute, Whitechapel, is found murdered in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. Her throat is slashed and her abdomen is mutilated. September 30, 1888, Elizabeth Stride, a 44-year-old prostitute, is found murdered in Dupfield's Yard, off Burner Street, Whitechapel. Her throat is slashed, but her abdomen is not mutilated. September 30, 1888, Catherine Eddowes, a 46-year-old prostitute, is found murdered in Mitre Square, Whitechapel. Her throat is slashed and her abdomen is mutilated. November 9, 1888, Mary Jane Kelly, a 25-year-old prostitute, is found murdered in her room at 13 Millers Court, off Dorset Street, Spitalfields. Her throat is slashed and her body is mutilated beyond recognition. October 16, 1888, the first letter signed, Jack the Ripper, is received by the Central News Agency. October 28, 1888, the second letter signed, Jack the Ripper, is received by the Central News Agency, along with a portion of a human kidney. November 9, 1888, the From Hell letter, which is believed to have been written by the killer, is received by George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. September 1889, the police investigation into the murders officially ends. October 1889, journalist George R. Sims publishes a series of articles in the Referee claiming that he knows the identity of the killer, but does not reveal it. February 1894, a man named Thomas Cutbush is arrested for a series of stabbings and sent to Broadmoor Criminal Lunatic Asylum. 1895, journalist Frederick Best claims that he knows the identity of the killer, but does not reveal it. 1903, Sir Melville Macnaghten, Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, writes a memorandum identifying 3 suspects: Montague John Druitt, Michael Ostrog, and Aaron Kosminski. 1907, American author Thomas Stowell publishes a book claiming that the killer was a man named Severin Klosowski, who later became known as George Chapman. 1959, journalist William Stewart publishes a book claiming that the killer was Queen Victoria's grandson, Prince Albert Victor. 1970s, a man named James Maybrick is proposed as a suspect based on a diary that allegedly belonged to him. 1987, DNA analysis is used for the first time to try to identify the killer, but the results are inconclusive. 1991, journalist Stephen Knight publishes a book claiming that the murders were part of a conspiracy involving Freemasons, the royal family, and others. 2002, Patricia Cornwell publishes a book claiming that the killer was Walter Sickert, a prominent artist. 2019, DNA testing conducted on a shawl belonging to Catherine Eddowes identifies Aaron Kosminski as the likely culprit. However, this conclusion is not universally accepted. Despite the lack of a conclusive identification, the case of Jack the Ripper remains one of the most studied and discussed criminal cases in history. Over the years, numerous books, articles, films, and TV shows have been produced, examining the case from various angles and perspectives. Theories. One of the most intriguing aspects of the case is the identity of the killer. Many theories have been proposed over the years, ranging from the plausible to the outlandish. Some of the most popular suspects include: 1. Montague John Druitt, a barrister and teacher who committed suicide shortly after the last murder. Some have suggested that he was driven to madness by his homosexuality, while others believe that he was a copycat killer. 2. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jew who was committed to an asylum in 1891. Some modern researchers have claimed that DNA evidence links him to the murders, but this claim is disputed. 3. Michael Ostrog, a Russian-born thief and conman who had a history of violence towards women. Some have suggested that he may have been a member of the Russian royal family in disguise. 4. Francis Tumblety, an American quack doctor and alleged homosexual who had a collection of female uteri. Some have suggested that he may have been motivated by a hatred of women. Other theories have suggested that the killer was a member of the royal family, a doctor or surgeon, a butcher, or a midwife. Some have even proposed that the murders were committed by a group of individuals, rather than a single killer. Despite the lack of a definitive identification, the case of Jack the Ripper continues to fascinate and intrigue people around the world. The gruesome nature of the murders, the mystery surrounding the killer's identity, and the historical context of Victorian London all contribute to the enduring popularity of the case. Conclusion. The Jack the Ripper case had a significant impact on society at the time and in the following years. The murders themselves were shocking and terrifying, especially for the residents of Whitechapel, who felt vulnerable and unsafe in their own community. The brutality and gruesomeness of the killings were also sensationalized in the press, which helped to spread fear and panic throughout London and beyond. The case prompted a massive police investigation, one of the largest in history at the time, which failed to catch the killer. The failure of the police to solve the case undermined public confidence in law enforcement and led to criticism of their methods and techniques. The case also highlighted the issue of poverty and social inequality in Victorian England. The victims of the murders were all poor women, many of whom had turned to prostitution to survive. The fact that their lives and deaths were deemed less important than those of wealthier individuals sparked outrage and calls for social reform. In the years following the murders, the case became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring countless books, films, and TV shows. The mystery of the killer's identity captured the public imagination, and many theories and conspiracy theories emerged over the years. Overall, the impact of the Jack the Ripper case was far-reaching and long-lasting, reflecting the social, political, and cultural issues of Victorian England, and continuing to fascinate and intrigue people to this day. Who do you think Jack the Ripper could be and what happened to him? Comment down below. Like and subscribe.